So investors need incentives. If we're going to get them, everybody wants to do something to make money. Everybody wants to invest. It has to be simple. It has to be attractive. It has to be real. It has to be protected. And seriously, I think, it has to almost be down to where you have to be goofy to pass it up. So like what? Small Business Jobs Act, which Mikey's going to talk about in more detail along the way. I think that kind of thing was on the right track, but not far enough. It provided that basically between September 15th and January 1st, coincidental with the expiration of the Bush tax cuts in a month or so, that people that invested in the defined small business didn't have to pay capital gains tax on the profit. So what was the result? The result was our lawmakers deliberated and subsequently through a legislative scheme to incentivize private investment and job creation, but it only lasted 100 days. Mikey seems to think they're going to extend it. Maybe they will. I hope they do. But this is a simple process. I don't know if you remember when Canada passed tax legislation to give benefits for investing in the movie industry to Canadians. They had more money flow into the Canadian film industry than ever in history because it was a simple procedure. Invest in the funds for the movie, and you get to use tax write-off and a benefit of no taxation on the profit. So when we bring them in here in February, these are the kind of simple things that maybe we could think about doing. And I just ask that you, in our dialogue in the panel, and when you go home, look at the Small Jobs Act, think about the kind of creativity, what kind of simple things that are protected. I'm not talking about stupid stuff. I'm just saying we want the people out there to get elated and say, thank God, they finally are doing something to give us a break here, and they'll take advantage of it. I'm going to mention a couple of other things that are going on you may not know about. Massachusetts passed a new privacy law. And a lot of us in here are broker dealers or in the financial regulatory industry that have to deal with these things. And it talked about minimum standards for personal information and encryption. And basically they said that what is personal information? It's defined as a person's first and last name, the first initial and last name, or with any one or more of the following: social security number, driver's license, state issued ID, financial account numbers, credit card numbers, and debit card numbers. So the law's requirements give you all this information that you have to do to follow the statutes, which goes down to all the way to encryption. So now you need to concern yourself with more encryption, creative and vigilant about passwords, carefully review and check backgrounds for everyone in the office area, people who deliver supplies and maintenance. So what's the bottom line? How do you handle it? I'm just bringing this up. That Massachusetts was the first state that did it, but there are 8 or 10 states that have Massachusetts law looking at it as a model law. So what's the direction things are going in? That many states are battling with these issues. So who's to say that the FINRA people aren't going to come in and say, it doesn't. We don't have to have a rule. We just have to say you have to have best practices, and you should know what best practices are. So they just come in and say the law. Just because it's not the law doesn't mean you don't have to do it. So you just need to be aware, and we need to be aware of some of the things we're going to bring into this forum on Friday with multiple educational opportunities is these kinds of law. Now I'm just going to go through this very quickly about the Dodd-Frank because we have people that are going to talk about it in a lot more detail. I'm just showing you these slides that I have. You're welcome to it. It's a summary of everything that's in the bill, and I think that the question deals with almost every aspect. But the important thing is that's the umbrella, and so many things are going to go underneath it that haven't been done yet. So that's our chance to pick out and isolate the things that are in there that we want to get to. And moving forward, and I'm not going to deal with, everybody heard a few of the issues of
Before you leave these slides, could you go back to that one slide with the 9 different
Yeah,
regulations?
sure. But I mean, the whole point is we need a little bit more relaxation. And, the regulators are not going to throw us, and Congress is not going to throw us life preserving. We have to create small, incremental changes that adapt to our daily operation with the people that are influencing the interpretation of Congress. I'm going to go back to, you talking about the
Massachusetts, the one with the list of the 9 things that they're requiring. That's it. I just wanted to make the point that everybody here who's a broker dealer will recognize from 1 to 7 is basically already in FINRA's rules. Number 8 and 9 are not. And number 8 and 9 are the 2 that we're afraid all the other states are going to adopt. And that is a huge cost to every single broker dealer. Huge. So it's not a small thing.
And if you're doing business in Massachusetts, I don't know, is anybody in here licensed and registered and doing business in Massachusetts right now? This is the law. So regardless of what FINRA has said, you have to comply with this. And FINRA's going to come in and say, oh, well, you're licensed in Massachusetts, this is Massachusetts state law, you have to do it, show us. Oh, in April, you didn't go change your written supervisory procedures manual, put that in there, shame on you.
Write them up.
And, oh, you sent out all these attachments and emails and they weren't encrypted or whatever. So it's not just Massachusetts. I didn't have time to figure out if anybody else had passed it. I just know that it's sitting in around 8 or 10 legislative bodies in different states. So if we don't have if we don't think about how we're going to handle this day in, day out in our practices and in our offices, if we don't have a dialogue with your particular states that you're interested in and have a dialogue, it's just going to pass and then they're just going to push it on you. So with that, I have a summary that's only, 6 to 8 pages that I gave to the Emily of the Dodd-Frank bill that outlines per section what the highlight, what the important thing is. So if anybody wants it, you can have that. The slides, if anybody wants them, you can have that. And the idea here is to start sharing, bringing in information that's current, that's going to impact us right here, right now. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close my opening remarks and introduce Mike was introduced yesterday, so he doesn't need another introduction today. And let me just say this, right after he speaks, Roland is going to talk to you about his frustration with the capital markets, and that'll also be part of our analysis.
One of the things that I think we want to thank Emily and the board of directors of NIBA is for allowing time at these conferences for what we hope is value-added content for the members and our issuers who come here to the conference to present. Because a lot of these topics obviously affect them directly or indirectly as much as they affect the broker-dealers. Obviously, Merrill Lynch isn't here. Goldman Sachs isn't here. They're not going to be doing the smaller issuers transactions. We are. So our fate between the broker-dealers in the third and second tier offerings and the smaller issuers that come here for capital formation and exposure, our lives are intertwined forever. We all know that the government in a new Congress starting on January 3rd has 3 objectives. A, in the Senate, trying to keep the 3-person majority actually in the majority. As we all know, we've heard West Virginia, Nebraska, and Connecticut all have senators that could, on any given issue, flop over to the more conservative side than the more liberal side, which would then throw the Congress into a 50-50 balance. So that's certainly one of their intentions. Obviously, repealing parts of the Health Act and amending some of the Dodd-Frank rules has been another agenda that's been mentioned by the House and to some extent by the Senate. And obviously, they have to do the most important thing, which would So we know that that's where their attention is going to be for the first quarter, at least, of next year. In the lame duck session, it's just going to be parrying something substantial is going to be done that we don't already know is going to be done. So basically, what opportunity do we have as an organization, and in conjunction with other organizations, RESA, and the Miami Forum, and the Independent Due Diligence Association, and the FSX have already agreed that some of the fundamental things that we talked about yesterday and things that you're going to hear about in a second are things they'd like to get behind. Well, guess what? On an active membership broker-dealer list, that's over 650 active member broker-dealers in those organizations. So I think by bringing in 2 or 3 more organizations over the next month, before the new conference even starts, we can be up to close to 1,000 broker-dealers being behind this. And with 1,000 active broker-dealers behind this, we will have a voice. I can guarantee you that. Because those 1,000 broker-dealers are going to represent about 150,000 of the 637,000 brokers licensed in America. That's a significant minority. So that'll create a voice for us. How do I go through this? The Dodd-Frank bill will create more service and government agency jobs. Obviously, they're the wrong kind of jobs. But I thought I would let you read this quote from Mary Shapiro, which she gave last week at the SIFMA meeting. It was one of her opening quotes at the SIFMA conference. Obviously, the SEC's view is our view at the moment, because the SEC, not Congress, is where we have to be. That Congress has already spoken. They're going to decide the things I just mentioned in the first quarter. So for the first time, we only have to go to one party. I've been reading the 6,600 comments until I fall asleep. I've discounted the 500 wacko ones, you open and you close in 2 seconds. And I've discounted the 1,000 or so insurance brokers who basically are afraid of the fiduciary standard because it's going to hurt their annuity sales. But that leaves about, 4,500 comments so far that I've been able to read through. And commentators, these are some of the things that commentators are saying. These are very reasonable comments in a lot of cases. There's no question it's keeping everybody waiting for the political and bureaucratic process. But here are some surprising things that not only didn't they fix in the Dodd-Frank Act, that was not a surprise, but what the commentators, those 6,600 people that took the time to comment, and people like Sherman and Sterling Law Firm, people like, the Marketing Financial Association, they want to know, as we want to know, is FINRA a subcontractor to the SEC or still an SRO, self-regulatory organization? Should BDs join the last remaining regional exchange to change their SRO status? Should FINRA be transferred to the SEC and go back to the old NESD structure, or at least, if not go back to the old NESD structure, go back to what the NESD was originally in 1940 organized by Congress to do, which was what? Does anybody remember what the NESD was organized to do? It was organized to set and standardize and fix prices on consumer transactions and to regulate corporate finance rates and transaction standards with corporations. That was what the self-regulatory organization of NESD was supposed to be doing, and they did fairly successfully until about 1998. These are the comments. These aren't my reactions. These are the things I've gleaned out of the comments. I was shocked to see these.